Last month, I realized my so-called high-yield savings account had quietly stolen 11 years of growth from my future. Not by crashing, not by some scam, just by doing exactly what the bank promised, while my deposits sat there looking safe and slowly losing power. On paper, my account looked great. 4.1%. Bright green app screen. Little confetti animations when interest hit. I felt clever every time I checked it. Then I learned three things. Once those three clicked, I quit that account as my main plan for building wealth. By the end of this, you might do the same, or at least use it very differently. Let me show you how I got there because I am not starting from some huge salary. I am Harry. I answer customer emails for a software company 40 hours a week. After taxes and deductions, my paycheck lands at $3,119 every month. Not terrible, not amazing, very normal. When rates started climbing, my bank sent that magical email. Boost your savings with our high-yield account. I moved everything over in one afternoon. At first, it felt like the smartest decision I had ever made with money. Month 1. I had $4,932 in there. The app showed a few dollars of interest. Month 2, a little more. I started rounding up every card purchase and tossing in every extra 20. By month 6, the balance said $6,741. I felt like things were finally moving. Here is where the pain started. Because those numbers were growing, I thought my future was protected. I delayed investing. I delayed learning. I delayed every uncomfortable decision and told myself, at least my savings are growing. One night, half out of boredom, I pulled up a simple calculator and compared that growth to two other realities: what inflation was doing, and what my bank was doing with my money. That is when thing one hit me like a brick. Thing one was simple. My real return after inflation and tax was almost nothing. The marketing line screamed 4.1%. My paycheck told a different story. I am in a very basic tax bracket, so roughly a third of that interest gets shaved off before I even touch it. 4.1 drops to maybe 2.7. Then prices rise 2 to 3% a year. Groceries, rent, everything. So in a normal year, my real gain is maybe 0.5%. Some years, it is negative. On $5,000, that is $25 of real progress for 12 months of patience. That is not building wealth. That is hoping inflation behaves. I stared at the numbers on my screen. All those little confetti bursts I had celebrated were basically the bank refunding a tiny part of what rising prices had already taken. If you are like me, you chased a higher rate because it felt responsible. It feels better than leaving cash in a 0% account. And for short-term goals or emergency money, that still matters. But I was not using it like that. I was parking years of future growth there, thinking the label high yield meant good enough. Around that time, I picked up The Automatic Millionaire by David Bach. He talks about making money work while you sleep, automation, habits, that kind of thing. As I read, something bothered me. He was not talking about squeezing every penny out of a savings account. He was talking about owning assets that actually grow. Meanwhile, my account was a treadmill, fast enough to make me sweat, too slow to get me anywhere. That was thing one. High yield sounds strong. After inflation and taxes, the real number is often tiny. I still did not quit. I told myself, at least it is safe. So I kept piling money in. Paycheck hits, bills go out, leftover goes to savings. Very normal, very adult, very stuck. Thing 2 showed up a few weeks later when I finally asked, what is the bank doing with this money? I had never thought about that. They were not putting my $6,741 into the same cozy account. They were lending, investing, moving it through the system at much higher rates. They paid me 4.1 on my deposits, then turned around and charged some small business 10, 12, sometimes more on a credit line. Or they bought things that paid them 6 or 7 while I watched my app flash small numbers. The spread between what they pay and what they earn is their business model. It is not evil, it is just the game. But I realized I was sitting on the wrong side of that game. I thought about a line from The Richest Man in Babylon by George Clason. He talks about making your gold have children, then grandchildren. My money was not having children. It was being adopted by the bank, put to work for them, and I got a small babysitting fee in return. Here is the ugly part. The longer I stayed in that safe account, the more I trained myself to accept scraps. I was letting the bank earn the real compounding while I clapped for single-digit interest. If you have ever looked at your end-of-year statement and felt both proud and weirdly disappointed, you know that feeling. You did the responsible thing. You saved. You avoided dumb purchases. Yet the number at the bottom does not match the effort you remember from the year. That is not a personal failure. It is a structural one. You are standing on the wrong side of the compounding machine. Still, I stayed. Why? Because I did not want to risk losing money. I did not want to open an investing account and see red numbers. The app for savings never shows red. It just shows slow green. Thing 3 finally broke that spell. It had nothing to do with rates, it had everything to do with time. I was mixing money that needed to be safe for 12 months with money that needed to grow for 12 years. I had one giant savings bucket and no plan beyond more. An older coworker slid a book across my desk one afternoon. The Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins. He said, "Read this before you get another raise." That book explained something embarrassingly obvious. Cash has a job. Investments have a different job. When you force them to do the same job, you lose. Cash is there so your car repair does not become credit card debt, so a surprise dental bill does not wreck your month, so you can sleep. Investments are there so your future self is not trapped at 65, still answering emails at a job you hate. They grow slowly, unevenly, sometimes painfully, but over 10, 20, 30 years, they outpace any savings rate the bank can offer. I realized I had given my cash the wrong job. I was asking it to be my entire wealth plan. So I sat down at my kitchen table one Sunday night with a notebook and my banking apps open. I pulled up my high-yield account, $9,311. It felt big. It also felt stuck. I asked 3 questions. First, how much did I actually need in the next 12 months? Rent buffer? Emergency fund? Known expenses? I added up 1 month of essential bills, rounded up a little, and set that as my must-stay-in-cash target. For me, that number was $3,759. Second, how much was just fear money? Cash I was keeping because I was scared to invest, not because I had a clear reason. That was everything above that $3,759. Third, what would happen if I moved the fear money into a simple, boring index fund and left it there for the next decade? Not checked it every day, not traded, just owned a tiny slice of thousands of companies instead of renting my money to a bank. I ran 2 scenarios. Keep $9,311 in the high-yield account for 10 years at my current real return. Or keep $3,759 for safety and move the rest, $5,552, into an index fund and keep adding small monthly amounts. The difference over 10 years was not subtle. It was thousands and thousands of dollars. Not guaranteed, not smooth, but dramatically different. That was thing 3. Time multiplies the gap between saving and owning, and I had been giving all my time to the wrong tool. When that sank in, quitting the high-yield account as my main wealth plan was not scary anymore. It felt necessary. I did not close it. That is important. I repurposed it. I renamed the account Shock Absorber inside my banking app. This is the place for 3 things only: emergency fund, near-term goals, planned big expenses in the next year or 2. If the balance creeps above that target, I know fear is running the show again. Then I opened a basic investing account. Nothing fancy. No options, no leverage, no gambling. Just a broad index fund that owns tiny bits of many companies. I set up one simple rule for myself. Every time I get paid, the first transfer is not into savings anymore. It is into that index fund. An odd amount that fits my real life. For me, that is $233 every paycheck. Only after that do I top up the shock absorber if it is below target. Everything else pays bills and life. Month 1 felt strange. My savings balance stopped being the main scoreboard. I had been obsessed with that number. Watching it dip because I moved money into investments felt wrong at first. Month 3, I saw something new. The shock absorber stayed near that $3,759 mark. It bobbed up and down with real life. Car tire here, doctor visit there. but it recovered. Meanwhile, the investing account crossed 1,183. Not huge, but real. And it moved differently. Sometimes up, sometimes down, but with a clear long-term direction. By month 9, that investing balance passed 3,847. The old me would have tried to push all of that into the high-yield account and feel proud. The new me just smiled, because I finally understood what was actually happening. My cash was doing its job. My investments were doing theirs. The bank still used my deposits. But now I was using markets too. Here is what I wish someone had told me when I first saw that high-yield email. Thing 1. The headline rate is not your real return. After tax and inflation, many accounts barely move the needle on true wealth. Use them for safety and short-term needs, not as your main engine. Thing 2. If your money lives only in savings, you are on the wrong side of the bank's business model. They are compounding with your cash. You are accepting the crumbs from that compounding. Thing 3. Time belongs with assets that grow, not with cash that treads water. Separate the money that needs to be safe for the next 12 months from the money that needs to grow for the next 12 years. Give each a different home. If this feels overwhelming, do not overhaul everything tonight. Start with one small move. Open your banking app. Rename your high-yield account to something honest like shock absorber or next 12 months. Calculate 1 month of bare-bones expenses, then multiply by a number that helps you sleep. Maybe it is 1.5, maybe it is 3. That is your cash target. Anything above that number is not safety. It is potential growth trapped in the wrong container. Then, in the next week, open the simplest investing account you can find and buy the most boring broad fund you can understand. Start with a tiny amount, $50, $27. Whatever feels small enough that you will actually do it. The goal is not perfection. The goal is to move your future out of a marketing slogan and into real ownership. I quit my high-yield savings account as my main wealth plan after learning those 3 things. I still log in. I still like the green numbers. But now they are backup singers, not the star of the show. Your bank will not email you and say, "Hey, you are overusing this account." They like it this way. The system likes it this way. You do not have to. You can let your savings stay safe for the short term and let your investments carry the long term. You can decide that high yield is a label, not a destiny. Tonight, give your money 2 jobs instead of 1. Let some protect you, let some grow for you. 10 years